Okay, welcome to the KENN7 podcast. Obviously, there is a world of news going on around Liverpool at the moment with the European Super League. So I thought, who better than to speak to about the European Super League and what the proposals are than Paul Dalglish, who actually works in America. Paul, thanks very much for joining me, mate. Mate, you've worked in America for a number of years now as a player and a manager. The franchise model is something that you're used to. First of all, why don't you give us a little insight into how that works and why it works in America?
Well, I think that the franchise model works in America because it is seen first and foremost as a business. And what happens is when you create a monopoly, which is what the franchise model is, then what you do is your weakest link, if you like, value is much higher than the weakest link in an open system. So, for instance, if you look at the NFL, the small market team in the NFL has a comparatively much higher franchise value than one of the bigger teams in the NFL, say the Dallas Cowboys or somebody. The difference between the top and the bottom franchise value is a lot closer than it is in an open system model. And so when you work over here, what you hear about is increasing the franchise value of the organization. And it really, professional sports over here, in most cases, are a business. It's entertainment, it's a business. And the owners it's very, very normal for the owners to make money. And not only make money, the owners in some sports actually lift the trophy if a team wins a trophy, not the captain. So it's a different mindset over here that I understand quite well. That is hard for some people in Europe to get the head drowned or to kind of accept, really.
So looking at what's proposed, I mean, obviously we had a chat before and you've had a little look at it. What are the sort of things that are similar that are proposed with this European Super League?
Well, basically what they're doing is they are, as I said, it's a monopoly. So what happens now is you protect all your members. And what happens is once they set a number of teams, then you've maxed out on the amount of teams. So it's not like another team can join. So then it as the MLS at this moment in time are going through expansion, they continually raise the expansion fee so that the teams that bought in first and invested the money at the beginning now get more of a return for their investment at the beginning. And then what happens is once you max out on a certain amount of teams, like in the NFL and the NBA, then what happens is if somebody wants to buy a franchise, the value is much higher, but also they might buy a franchise and relocate it to another city. So what you do is you control the value of the franchise because another one can't be made because they set a max at the limit. So then what happens is then the weakest franchises all of a sudden now increase in value if somebody wants to buy them and relocate them to a new market. So
it's very much like what David Beckham's just done, obviously.
Well, but that's the system in America. That's the system in America right now, and it does increase the franchise value of the weaker teams, and it does create a monopoly that, for me, I work outside of MLS. So we can play them in cup competition, the US Open Cup, but we can't play an MLS team. We can't earn the right to play in MLS through merit, through competition. You can only earn the right to play in that through money. And that is the similarity between the proposed Super League and the current system in America.
We've had a chat about this before, and am I right in saying that the system with no promotion and relegation is actually against FIFA regulations. Is that right?
Open for discussion, Gav. Obviously, there's been lawsuits over here, so it's open for interpretation. How people feel that the laws are to be interpreted, but it's it's a complicated one, Gav. It's a complicated one.
Now, bringing it back to Liverpool, obviously you've seen the response to what's gone on. Liverpool are fully involved in this. You know, they are one of the architects of this idea. As a, speaking as a fan, I know it's difficult for you, mate, but speaking as a fan, how has it made you feel? What have you thought about the whole process and the reaction to it?
Yeah, I understand the reaction. I understand the motivation from the teams and the owners, which is to generate as much money as possible so that you can sign the Mbappes or the Haalands or Neymars, whoever becomes available. You can keep your Salahs, you can keep your Manes. So I understand the motivation from the owners. I don't agree with it because I think that, sports in America, if I'm honest, are a business that are set up for entertainment, professional sports. They have never been based on merit. It's never been an open system. It's been a closed system, and that works in America. And what the kind of equivalent is over here is college sports, where the athletes play for free. Now, a lot of times, if you look at the bond that teams have, fans have with their college team, they went there for 4 years. They went to the games. They embraced the culture of that college. They have alumni that donate back to the college, and they feel a real brotherhood or sisterhood with people that they went to that college game with. And actually, there are some college football teams that get higher attendances than NFL teams. Some of the biggest stadiums in America are college football stadiums because of that loyalty that's created. Now, in sports in England, they're not set up although they are run as a business. They were originally, and they are deep-rootedly found on serving the community. If you go back to Manchester United, it was basically a social club to provide for the workers. And a lot of football clubs in England were set up to provide for the community. And the idea that your community could, on merit, compete against other communities, regardless of the financial situation of the club, is what our game has been founded on. So for me, that's why I'm fundamentally against not a Super League. I think a Super League would be fine if you could get into the Super League on merit, not money. So if UEFA wanted to get together, or clubs wanted to break away and create a Super League above the domestic league, but you had to qualify for that Super League based upon your domestic success, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. That's what the Champions League is. So I have no problem with creating something above domestic football, because that's what we already have. However, I have a real problem with not being able to achieve that through merit, even though Liverpool would be one of the privileged clubs that would be allowed to be in that because of finances, not because of merit. Because there is a chance that Liverpool don't qualify for the Champions League this year, but could be in the Super League. I don't think that's fair.
No. If you're enjoying this video so far, please show your support for the KENN7 channel by subscribing, clicking the like button, and also clicking the notifications button as well to get future broadcasts. If you could also share the video on your Twitter and Facebook account, that will show YouTube's algorithm that you like our content. Have you heard about KENN7 merchandise? The link is in the description of this video. We have premium fanwear for fans covering Liverpool, Celtic and Scotland. And it's fanwear for young and old. So we have t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, caps, mugs, you name it, we've got it. Just something else to remember, every purchase that is made on our website, we donate to the Marina Dalglish appeal. So you're helping a great cause as well. No. Is there I mean, I was thinking about this morning. Is there a scenario that you could see where UEFA come back to the 6 teams in England and say, well, listen, we don't want you to do this, because there's going to have to be some backwards and forwards if this doesn't go ahead. And one of the things I thought was that they increase the number of your Champions League places to 6 instead of 4. And would that be
there's been proposals, you know, that they call it the Swiss League model, that have been proposed, where teams play 10 group games. Now, for me, Gav, it's what dilute the product and play more games. I think when I think that we've got to. What's happened in the past, Gav, is that Premier League clubs, Spanish clubs have used kind of this European Super League as a bargaining tool to try and get more from UEFA, or what they want from UEFA and what they want from the Premier League. However, this is a little bit different, where they haven't signed a contract to join the Super League, but they've more or less signed a letter of intent. I don't know the exact legal terms, but they have now shown some kind of commitment. You know, there are 3, Perez, I think, one of the Glazers and somebody else have put their name to it. They've actually put their names on it. This is a lot more serious than what has happened in the past. However, only time will tell whether the objectives are the same, whether they actually want or think it's possible to have a European Super League, or is this just a play to get more power from UEFA and the Premier League?
Where do you think we go from here? Let's start with our owners. Where do you think they go from here? I mean, can they climb down? Can they actually get the trust of the fans back? Because they've done it before and climbed down, and fans have let them off, I guess. Yeah, because they've done a lot of good for the club,
mate. Let's have no doubt about it. FSG have turned Liverpool from somebody that was right near the bottom of the table to one of the most powerful teams in world football, both on the pitch and off the pitch financially. So what FSG have done has been absolutely incredible for the football club. If you look at the main stand, the plans for the Anfield Road, they got investment, and the valuation that they got the investment from recently was a huge number. So they have done brilliantly for Liverpool Football Club, but Liverpool Football Club has actually made them a lot of money as well in the increase in the franchise value. So it's been a really good success story. Everything hasn't been perfect. There's been ups and downs. The FSG have got things wrong and backtracked. When they realised they've got things wrong. So I don't know, Gav. I don't think that we can look at FSG and say and forget everything that they've done good for the club. I think we've got to isolate this situation and say we don't agree with this. This isn't what this club was built on. And if that means that we have to accept that we are going to not have a franchise value as high as what it would be in a closed system, or we are not going to have the ability to sign Mbappe or Haaland if they come up, then that is the consequences of what we want. You know, with every decision that's made, there's consequences, and we've got to accept that.
I did say to you, didn't I? We had a chat last night, didn't we? And I said it's funny, you know, playing devil's advocate and trying to look at it from both sides. You know, fans are always shouting the odds and saying, you know, we want Mbappe, we want these top players, Haaland, Sancho, who are going to cost over 100 million quid. But then when the owners do something to try and make money in order for us to be able to afford stuff like that, then everyone's up in arms. I'm not saying it's right. What I'm saying is can you have it both ways?
Well, the thing is, Gav, that, you know, if you actually think who's got the ability to spend more money than Liverpool, there's not many teams in world football that have the ability to sign, to spend more money than Liverpool. If you look at Barcelona, are $1 billion in debt, I think. Real Madrid are 900 million. I don't know whether it's dollars or euros. So how do they have the ability to go and sign Mbappe or Haaland if we don't? You know, if you look at Man City and Paris Saint-Germain, the reason that they have the money is not because they bring in revenue. It's because their owners have the wealth to bring them in. And you can argue all you want about financial fair play. But if you look at the amount of money that Liverpool spend and the amount of money that they bring in, they're probably one of the kind of best run businesses, if you like, or best run clubs in football.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, Gav, how can other teams afford them? You know, if you look at the actual revenue that teams bring in, Man United bring in more revenue than Liverpool. Bayern Munich, I think, are up there. The Spanish clubs. But the Spanish clubs have huge debt. You know, Manchester United have a huge debt because they've borrowed the money.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's, without knowing all the details, Gav, I mean, I think it's too easy to say that we can't, unless we join the Super League, then we can't afford Mbappe or Haaland.
No, I think that's fair enough. I mean, Bayern Munich, I'm sure Bayern Munich they're not up there when it comes to the highest transfer fees ever paid in Europe. They'd be way down the list. They pick the best youngsters in Germany, don't they? But I can't remember them ever signing certainly not signed the £100 million. I don't think they signed a £70 million player, do you?
Well, I think that after the Neymar deal, the prices went through the roof.
Yeah.
Didn't they? So I think that before that, they did sign Ribéry, they did sign Robben, they signed Javi Martinez for a decent chunk of change. So they have signed at the time very, very expensive players. Now football's gone crazy since the Neymar deal when it comes to transfer, and hopefully that has been a little bit rectified after COVID. But the money is astronomical. And the one thing I would say, Gav, is if it means that to sign Haaland and Mbappe, and we're using these names, it's all hypothetical, we need to join a European Super League. Is it not easy for the clubs to get together and say, don't ever pay a player over this amount of money? But is it not easier to cap the amount of money? Just say, look, if a club's not willing to pay, if a clubs get together and say, we're not willing to pay 250 grand a week, $1 million a week, whatever it is, whatever the number is, then the money's not available for the player.
But there's legal issues around minimum wage and wage capping and all that sort of stuff.
I don't think 100 million is the minimum wage cap.
No, but you know what I mean. I know you have wage capping, don't you, in America?
We have a salary cap, mate. We have a salary cap, yeah. And for me, it's like we don't in our league, but in MLS you do.
Just touch on that. How does that work in America, a salary cap?
So basically, you get a certain amount of money to spend on wages. But it's so complicated, Gav, because there's all different ways you can divide it up. You have, when Beckham came, they introduced something in MLS called the designated player rule, where you could have one player that no matter how much you paid them, they only counted a certain amount out of your salary cap. Right. Then they introduced a young designated player. Then you're allowed multiple designated players. Then you have things like targeted allocation money. General allocation money, which can be used to pay for transfer fees and whatever else you want to use it for. So it's really, really complicated. It takes someone that is a real expert in managing a salary cap to be able to explain it fully. But it's basically a way of trying to create parity in a league. So that's it.
Just to finish up, what do you think is going to happen?
What I think is going to happen, see, the problem is, Gavin, and I look at it a couple of ways. The problem is that the Premier League have to, in my opinion, in my understanding, they have to approve the clubs to play in a tournament outside of the Premier League. So in our case, I do not believe that the Premier League are going to grant the permission to the 6 clubs to play in a European Super League. Therefore, we come to a situation where the clubs are going to say, well, we wanted to play in domestic football and the Premier League aren't letting us. And if that happens, then the clubs are going to say, well, look, we wanted to help. It's not our fault. And they're going to put everything on the Premier League, right? Or, again, this is being used as a negotiation tool to get more share, the Big Six to get more share of the commercial revenue that's generated by the Premier League. But the biggest challenge, Gav, is it's my understanding that clubs, and I saw Jordan Henderson's called an emergency meeting of team captains. My understanding is there's already been teams that players have gone to clubs, held meetings with clubs, expressing a desire not to play because the risk of the players then being banned from playing international football, therefore not being able to play in the Euros. Mm-hmm. So I think this has only just started, Gav. This has only just started. This is going to play out over the next few weeks.
So have you got any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
So I think that we've got to be careful that we've got to be careful because when people are talking about it being about money, it is about money for ownership. I totally of the big clubs. I understand that. I don't necessarily think it means that it's going to take money away from teams further down the pyramid. If all is to believed, I think that the Super League clubs have pledged to give more money than is currently being given to teams further down the pyramid, if all is to believed. However, this has to be an argument based on the integrity of the game and that you should earn what you want in football through merit, not through privilege. And I think that the ironic bit about it for me is that the owners that are fighting for a closed monopoly system have, in most cases, been able to buy that club from being involved in an open economy. And it, for me, it's the hypocrisy of that doesn't sit well with me. I think that, you know, I'm a big believer that sport is for the people and you should be able to earn what you deserve through merit, not through privilege. And that is the main point for me. I think money's always going to be important, but for me, it's the integrity of the game and achieving what you want through merit, not privilege.
Lovely stuff. That's well summed up, I think. We'll leave it there. Paul, thanks very much for joining me, and we'll see you again on another podcast. Cheers.